What's up, guys? Rick here with your betting and one and done preview for this week's Arnold Palmer Invitational. We'll talk through some outright options, some head-to-head matchups, and then one and done plays for this week. There is a live chat Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel that will allow us to go through all the questions and answers, ownership, bets you want to make, all that good stuff for this week's API. So don't miss that. But otherwise, let's jump into the bets. All right, before we jump into the board, we have to look back at last week. I think there was a great lesson to be learned. Collin Morikawa wins the WGC Workday at 55-1, or at least that's the number that some places had it. When I woke up Monday morning and I looked up the odds for the week, that was smacking me in the face. So when I tweeted it out, Collin Morikawa was 55-1. Some places had him as short as 35-1 at the same time, which really the lesson is then be able to shop, right? If you open up your book and you only have a 35-1 on Collin Morikawa, that's great. Hitting a 35-1 is always awesome, but the ability to be able to be like, oh, let me shop this around. Oh, it's 40 here, it's 45 there, it's 55-1 here. Obviously a much better situation. So having access, if you can, to a couple of different books, couple of different options certainly goes a long way. Also, shopping these numbers from one app to another goes a long way, as evidenced by what we saw last week. And if you need more books, go to rickrungood.com/bets, and there's a couple of books up there for a lot of states. Get your free bets in, and then you can shop these numbers all around. For this week's Arnold Palmer Invitational, the tournament predictor has been run. This tournament has been simulated 1,000 times, and I will show you the results. And here they are in all their glory. No surprise to see Rory McIlroy leading the way in terms of simulation wins. He won my simulations 9.8% of the time. That's the most of any golfer in this field. That's no surprise. He's 8.5-1 to win this golf tournament. Patrick Reed was next, 8.8%. Tyrrell Hatton, 7.6%. Bryson DeChambeau, 6.2%. And then Hideki, 6.1%. Maybe that's the one that is the most surprising. But if you're new to the channel, if you're new to trying to figure out what this tool is, essentially the results of this tournament get simulated 1,000 times. How often does each golfer win, finish inside the top 10, top 20, and top 5? And then we compare those to the odds to see if this is actually bettable or not. So the Rory McIlroy number, while he does win the golf tournament 9.8% of the time, the most of anybody in this field, it's not really bettable because the implied odds that he has currently at either William Hill or at DraftKings indicate he's going to win this golf tournament about 10% of the time. I have him winning it about 9.8% of the time. There's no built-in equity there. Now there is some value built in on the next two guys here, Patrick Reed and Tyrrell Hatton. So Reed at 8.8% in my simulations winning it, only has to win it about 3.5% of the time to pay himself off. So that's a pretty significant upgrade for Patrick Reed. And then Tyrrell Hatton in a similar way, I have him winning 7.6% of the time. Odds imply that he wins it 5.3% of the time. So there is some juice to squeeze out of that one. And then Hideki was the other big one that would indicate value. He is currently, as of this moment, 28-1, which implies he's winning this golf tournament about 3.4% of the time. I have him winning it about 6.1% of the time. So those are the three that nearest the top of the betting board offer the most outright value. That's just for outrights. I will note, if you want to scroll through these, you can find some interesting numbers. Like Will Zalatoris here is pretty interesting. He's not necessarily bettable from an outright standpoint. I don't know if there's enough juice to squeeze out of that. There's a little bit of value there, but it gets better in the top 5 markets. So like Zalatoris for top 5, I actually have him finishing in the top 5 13.1% of the time. Now, you have to remember his sample size for the model is much smaller than everyone else's, but he's been playing great. So I have him finishing there about 13% of the time. It's a little bit less than Sung Jae. It's a little bit more than Tommy Fleetwood. And his top 5 number, you can get it at 10-1. I believe, which means there is a couple of percentage points that you can squeeze out of there. So that's the best place to deploy Will Zalatoris is the top 5 market. The top 10 market's okay. the outright market is a little bit worse than that, and then the top 20 market, it would be 4th out of 4. So notice that there are different ways that you can deploy these golfers to accomplish, in theory, maximum value based on the model. We can talk about the model. We can talk about kind of my gut reactions and where I'm going anecdotally, but it is worth noting that, of course, some guys are better in outright situations and some are better in top 5s, top 10s, or even matchups. Personally, my betting card will reflect a portion of this model. I find the intersection of my gut and the model at Terrell Hatton, who obviously has won this tournament in the past. He won it last year. He's back to defend. I don't have to think. I know his game sets up well for it. He wins at a very, very high clip worldwide. The model loves him. He is, and with the way he played last week, he didn't play poorly last week, but he finished T22, which is disappointing, but he shot his best round on Sunday. So I'll give a nod back to Hatton at 18, which is what I think to be a good number. And then I will also probably grab Sung Jae at, I think I got him at 25, but I see him at 22 in some places, 24. And this is really an investment in the Florida swing. He's been unbelievable at the Florida swing. He's been unbelievable at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Has the winning upside, obviously, and I think that there's a hair of value there. I probably won't be able to get to Rory. I'm so torn on Rory, who hasn't won it over a year now. He's single digits. He's 8.5 to 1. This is a place that he's had great success at, but it's the iron game. We are a year into his irons being tour average. And if you think I'm kidding, I mean, let's just look it up. So here's Rory's holy grail by round. And what we'll do is to set a baseline. So it's March 2nd. So let's do March 1st of 2019 to March 1st of 2020. And this would essentially be before the shutdown, right? That's the year before the shutdown is essentially what we're looking at here. He was gaining on average per round 0.7 strokes on approach. 0.7. Okay. So nearly 3/4 of a stroke, 0.7. If we change this to then March 1st, 2020 to March 1st, 2021, he is gaining 1/4 of a stroke, 0.24. So that is a half a stroke per round, essentially every single round for 66 rounds or 67 rounds in that time frame, where he is worse on approach. It sounds small. Oh, it's only a half a stroke. A half a stroke on average in that one category is massive. That is the difference between being a top 10 player. No, it's probably the difference between being I'm trying to think in that category, like a top 40 player and like the best player in the world. I mean, now that I'm already down this rabbit hole, I might as well just do it. So let's just do, okay, so strokes gained approach. For this season, a half a stroke would be the difference between, well, this is just this field, but essentially a half a stroke would be the difference between Matt Wallace, who is on a small sample size, the 5th best player on tour in strokes gained approach and the best player in this field. The difference between him and CT Pan, who is the 40th best player on tour. So that's the difference. And that is what is stopping Rory from winning. So if he can fix that now, and I've been saying this for a year, if he can fix that, Rory's going to be incredibly dangerous again. But it's going to be hard to do that and win golf tournaments. So I'm out on Rory, at least for this week. Because also, here's the other thing about Rory. You're not going to need to bet him when he's the favorite, right? If he snaps out of this, if he gets the approach game fixed, he's going to win. He can win any tournament on the planet Earth, right? So I don't need to bet him when he's 8.5 to 1. If we go to the players and he's 12 or 14, or we go somewhere else and he's long, like I don't need to bet this because there's no indication that he is better suited for this event than basically any event on the PGA Tour. He's that good. So it's kind of a weird dynamic with Rory right now. So with the way I build my card, which, I made a video on this a couple of months ago. You can go check that out on the RickRunGood YouTube channel. I'm sure it's under strategy, how to build a golf betting card, I think it's called. Because I've kind of committed to Hatton and Sung Jae at the top, I have to go a lot further down my board after that. I can't just pile in the 30s or 40s or anything. So my next natural landing spot was the 80 to 90 range, which I focused on Cameron Davis, Cameron Tringale, and Corey Connors, the three C's apparently, because these are raw talent or ball striking guys. The only place I really ever want to deploy Corey Connors is probably here, so I'm about that. And then that was probably it. I think I might have sprinkled just a tiny bit on Brendan Steele at 150. I think that number's too far off. He should be in the 80s to 90s. He's probably not going to win, but I think that number's too far off for a guy who's historically a pretty good ball striker. So that's probably my card. Pretty tight this week because I've got two guys up near the top, so I can see. Hey, let's go look at some head-to-head matchups and see if we can find some value there as well. All right, head-to-head matchups. This is the head-to-head matchups tool on RickRunGood.com. You can change the date frame to whatever you want. I've been going with the start of 2020, but I guess we could actually probably do like the last year and do February on. But anyway, let's leave it, see what happens. Right out of the gate here, especially because this is a guy that I already mentioned. Let's see what Corey Connors versus Taylor Gooch is. I'm looking at DraftKings right now. Corey Connors is minus 125. Taylor Gooch is minus 103. I have Corey Connors winning this 52% of the time to Taylor Gooch's 47%, which makes this unbettable because both these lines are worse. So can't bet the Connor side, and you cannot bet the Gooch side. Let's see what else we can find here. How about this? Max Homa versus Kevin Kisner. Homa, a recent winner. I feel like that sometimes influences these lines. And Kisner, who had a disastrous, what was that, Saturday last week? Shot like an 80 or something. Yeah, see, here's this is kind of interesting. So I have Kisner, and it is very volatile, as you can see. Kisner played really well in the summer. Homa did not. Now Homa obviously coming back, especially because of the victory that he had. But Kisner actually getting worse. But I still have Kisner winning this 54% of the time, which means he should be minus 117. He is the dog on DraftKings. It's close, but he's the dog. So the bet side would be the Kisner side of this if you trust in the model. See if we can find one more. I want to find they're getting harder and harder to find really far off ones. I bet you this one's pretty far off, but could you trust Harris English right now? Fowler versus English. I mean, the longer the time frame you go, it's only going to get better for Harris English. I mean, Ricky Fowler's not even beating Kevin Kisner in a head-to-head. Yeah, I have Harris English winning this 78% of the time in the last year. That shows how bad Fowler's been, how good English has been. Now, English has been really bad recently, and Fowler's been better. So that is what books are working off of. If you want to buy into long-term, this is certainly a Harris English bet. I am winning it 78% of the time. That's bonkers numbers. Because these guys haven't been close in the last year, but in the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks, they have been. So you have to decide what is important to you. But Harris English is minus 129 to Ricky Fowler's plus 100 on DraftKings. I have it where, if you're doing a 78% win probability, Harris English should be minus 363, which is obviously huge. And one of the bigger differences we've gotten when we plug in two golfers here. So I was looking for a big one, and I found it with English over Fowler, if you like the long term. One and done. Let's do a run good one and done update. And I believe there were some Colin Morikawa backers last week. We've got Jay Key at 7.9, holding strong at the top, a storm of Shanks in second. Logan Dempsey in third, Swarm 19, and Brandon K9 rounding out the top 5. Let me see what our segment is here. So we have 3 events left in segment 2. So that's the API this week, the Players, and then the Honda. So the end of the Florida Swing concludes the end of segment 2. Keep that in mind. So if that does change your strategy a little bit, if you are let's look at the standings here. And this also applies to maybe some of the other contests that you're in. If you are Chappy Chaps, right, who is at 4.1 million for the year, but second in segment 2, you might want to burn a stud more than me, right? Who's I'm probably not going to win segment 2, but like you could lock in some winnings if you win segment 2. So that might change your strategy just a little bit, determine what's important to you. But for this week, I think there's a lot of really good options. You're going to get certainly no complaints from me if you go out and play Sung Jae Im. We've talked all week long about the Florida swing, talked all my life long about how great Sung Jae is. You're not going to get any complaints from me. You're not going to get any complaints from me if you roll back out on Tyrrell Hatton. If you didn't use him last week and you think, okay, he's going back to a place where he can defend, let me just roll Tyrrell Hatton back out there one more time. You're not going to get any complaints from me about that. You're also not going to get any complaints from me if you go look at the course history guys, the Francesco Molinaris of the world, for example. So Molinari, who is coming off of 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts. You look at his historical ownership, has basically resided just at the American Express. Now, if you're ever going to use a Francesco Molinari, because you probably don't have to use him much, this would be a pretty good spot to do it. He's trending well. You could also go to Mark Leishman, right? I mean, it depends. It depends on how big if you're doing the full 50 weeks of one and done, or you guys should read the emails I get about how many different one and dones are out there. Oh, we do a 2 and done, or we do 2, but then in the majors you get 3, and then or you get a mulligan. There's so many different ways. So obviously what I'm telling you should not be taken as gospel. You should be looking at it from your own lens and figuring out what is best for your current situation. But if you need to use someone like a Leishman, there have historically been a couple of places to run him out. The Sony Open, of course, and the API. Those are the two most popular places to use him. We also saw actually a lot of people using him at Workday, the Workday Charity Open, or at least relative to other events that you could have used Mark Leishman at. So those were the 3 that stood tall. But I mean, that's 4 really solid options depending on what you're looking for. I've narrowed it down to Sung Jae, Hatton, Leishman, and Molinari. You could certainly go in any other direction, but that feels like a really good core to start with and figure out kind of what your needs are and go from there. I think that'll do it. Bets and one and done in the books. Should be a great week. Is Bryson going to try to drive number 6? Might try. I don't know if he'll do it. He'll try. We'll see it in a practice round. It'll be fun. Otherwise, tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. Let me know who you're thinking for one and done this week. Let me know if you have any questions, concerns, comments, whatever you want. Best of luck this week. See ya.